smart people do dumb things all the time. In fact, some of the most intelligent minds in history have made mistakes so profound they've become cautionary tales. We often believe that being smart or having knowledge is a shield against poor decisions, but the truth is, intelligence can sometimes make us blind to the very pitfalls we think we can avoid. It's the human condition. We become so certain of what we know that we close ourselves off from learning anything new. Even the most brilliant individuals fall into the trap of ego, overthinking, and unchecked biases. History is filled with stories of brilliant people who let their intelligence lead them astray. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus warned us that we cannot learn that which we think we already know. In our rush to prove how much we know, we stop seeing the world for what it is. It's not enough to be smart. We must also be humble, open to change, and willing to question our own certainty. That's the path to true wisdom. So, if you've ever found yourself making a decision that, in hindsight, seems foolish, you're not alone. We're all human, and the journey toward wisdom is one of constant self-reflection. If that resonates with you, if you're ready to challenge your assumptions and discover new ways of thinking, then please subscribe. By doing so, you're taking a step toward becoming a wiser, more thoughtful version of yourself. So, let's dive in and learn how even the smartest among us can sometimes make the most foolish choices. We all crave certainty. It's natural. Our minds are wired to seek out answers, to know things with absolute confidence. The idea of being certain about something feels secure, safe even. It's almost like putting on armor, shielding ourselves from the discomfort of the unknown. But here's the catch. When we become too certain, we stop looking beyond our own narrow lens. Certainty can actually close us off to growth, new ideas, and opportunities that could challenge us to think deeper. It becomes a barrier that prevents us from expanding our understanding. The Stoics were keenly aware of this. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us that it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Certainty, in a sense, makes us stop living, stops us from experiencing the world fully. We begin to cling to our own beliefs, opinions, and knowledge, and in doing so, we forget that the world is always changing, always evolving. If we allow ourselves to become too confident, we fail to see how much we still have to learn. When we become too comfortable in our own assumptions, we stop seeking, we stop questioning, and that's when our growth stagnates. Think about it for a second. How many times have you dismissed an idea because it didn't fit with what you already knew? Or how many times have you avoided a new experience because it didn't align with your certainty about what was true? It's a dangerous trap. We might think that by being certain, we're keeping ourselves grounded, but we're actually limiting our potential. Being certain can make us blind to the richness of new perspectives, other truths, or even our own flaws. The world doesn't stop changing just because we've convinced ourselves that we've figured it out. We become trapped in our own minds, unwilling to question or evolve. This isn't just about intellectual curiosity, it's about the entire way we live. The more certain we are about something, the more we shut off the possibility of other ways of seeing the world. In fact, the more you believe you know, the harder it becomes to learn. Epictetus put it simply when he said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things." The problem isn't the world around us, it's how we perceive it. If we believe we have everything figured out, we stop questioning, stop evolving, and start making assumptions that limit our understanding. This is how intelligent people can end up doing dumb things. They become so certain in their views that they miss out on critical information. Our certainty prevents us from seeing the truth. It's like trying to pour water into a cup that's already full. No matter how much you try, the water won't go in. The cup is at its limit, and so are our minds when they're too full of preconceived ideas. And yet we live in a world where we're constantly encouraged to hold firm to our opinions, to defend what we believe with unshakable confidence. We see it everywhere, in politics, in social media, even in our own conversations. People argue for the sake of being right, not because they're open to learning. Certainty has become a badge of honor, but the reality is, it's a prison. When we think we know everything, we stop growing, we stop evolving. But there's a way out. The Stoics believed that true wisdom comes not from certainty, but from humility, the ability to acknowledge that we don't know everything, that we can always learn more. This humility allows us to step out of our own bubble and see the world as it truly is, not through the lens of our fixed beliefs. It requires the courage to say, "I don't have all the answers," and to embrace the discomfort of not knowing. This is where real growth happens, and it's not just about intellectual growth, it's about personal development. When we accept that we don't have all the answers, we open ourselves to the possibility of change, of growth, of better understanding not only the world, but ourselves as well. In the end, the pursuit of wisdom isn't about achieving certainty. It's about seeking to understand, questioning our own beliefs, and remaining open to new ideas and experiences. It's about realizing that the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. And when we embrace this, when we let go of our need to be right all the time, we make space for the things that truly matter, the things that lead to a richer, fuller life. We all have biases. It's just part of being human. Our brains are wired to make quick judgments, to find patterns, and to make decisions that help us navigate the world efficiently. It's a survival mechanism. But what happens when those biases start running the show? When they begin to shape the way we view reality, the way we make decisions, and how we relate to others? Biases, especially cognitive biases, can distort our judgment in ways we don't even realize. It's like putting on tinted glasses. You think you're seeing the world clearly, but your perception is clouded by your own beliefs and experiences. Even the most intelligent people aren't immune to this. In fact, sometimes intelligence makes it worse. The smarter you are, the more likely you are to fall victim to biases. Why? Because intelligence often comes with an added layer of confidence. You start to believe that your conclusions are more accurate than others, that your way of thinking is more reliable. But in reality, all of us are influenced by biases that shape how we interpret the world. We tend to focus on information that confirms what we already believe, and ignore or dismiss anything that challenges our worldview. It's a natural human tendency, but it's also a dangerous one. It limits our growth, keeps us from seeing the bigger picture, and prevents us from learning new things. The key to overcoming bias is awareness. We need to start recognizing when we're being influenced by our biases and take a step back to challenge them. It's not easy, but it's necessary if we want to make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and live more fulfilled lives. The Stoics teach us to examine our thoughts, to question our beliefs, and to strip away the layers of preconceptions that cloud our judgment. By doing this, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, new perspectives, and new ways of thinking. The process of self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools we have for growth. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate all biases, they're a part of who we are, but to recognize them for what they are, mental shortcuts that can lead us astray if we're not careful. Once we become aware of our biases, we can start to challenge them, to think more critically, and to make decisions that are based on a clearer, more accurate understanding of the world around us. This is the path to wisdom. This is how we break free from the limitations that our biases impose on us and open ourselves up to a richer, more complex understanding of life. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Intelligent people often fall victim to overthinking. It's not that deep thinking is inherently bad, it's the constant need to analyze every detail that can become a trap. Overthinking is like an endless loop, where you're stuck in the same thoughts, revisiting the same decisions, unable to move forward. The danger lies in the fact that the more we think, the more possibilities we uncover, and the more we hesitate. Instead of feeling clearer, we feel more confused. We become paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice, which can leave us stuck in the planning phase, missing out on the opportunities that are right in front of us. It's a cycle that intelligent people know all too well. Overanalyzing every situation can lead to self-doubt and indecision. It's a classic case of knowing too much and, paradoxically, understanding too little. The more we know, the more we realize how complex everything is. But in the process, we often lose sight of simplicity. It's like trying to solve a problem by examining every possible solution without ever taking action. It's easy to think that we need more information, more time to process. But sometimes, the most important thing is simply to move forward, to make a decision based on what we know at the moment. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Overthinking can sometimes be an escape from this, an unwillingness to trust ourselves, to make a decision and move forward, knowing that mistakes are part of growth. There's a famous Zen story about a master who invites a student to tea. As the master begins pouring tea into the student's cup, he pours and pours until the cup overflows. The student cries out, "Stop! The cup is full." The master replies, "Yes, and your mind is like this cup. It's already full. Until you empty it, you cannot learn anything new." It's a simple story, but it holds profound wisdom. Our minds, like the cup, are often filled with preconceived ideas, fears, and judgments that prevent us from seeing clearly. When we overthink, we crowd our minds with unnecessary noise, making it harder to focus on what truly matters. In the process, we miss out on the clarity that comes from letting go of the need to control every outcome. We stop being open to new ideas, new experiences, and new ways of thinking. How often do we find ourselves in this cycle? How often do we get caught in a web of thoughts, constantly analyzing, second-guessing, and doubting? We've all been there. It's easy to get lost in our own heads, to get wrapped up in the details and lose sight of the bigger picture. But the truth is, overthinking only clouds our judgment. It closes off the space for clarity, for action, and for progress. The longer we wait, the more tangled our thoughts become. And the longer we stay in that space, the harder it is to take that first step forward. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, wondering if we should jump. We think about the jump, the fall, the landing, everything, but we never actually take the leap. The Stoics warn us about this trap. Seneca himself taught that the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. When we think we have all the answers, we stop seeing the world as it truly is. We stop learning. The Stoic wisdom isn't just about accumulating knowledge, it's about applying that knowledge with humility and understanding that there's always more to learn. It's easy to get caught up in our own success, to think that because we've done well before, we don't need anyone else's input. But that's where we go wrong. Wisdom isn't a solo journey, it's a communal one. It's about listening, not just to others, but to our own instincts and doubts. We often make the mistake of thinking we have all the answers. And while confidence is important, it can become dangerous if it turns into overconfidence. When we reject the advice of others, We close ourselves off to new ideas, new perspectives, and even the chance to grow. This is something that the Stoics understood deeply. They didn't just value knowledge, they valued openness. The ability to listen, to reflect, and to reconsider was as important as being knowledgeable. Epictetus reminded us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. That's not just a nice piece of advice, it's a life lesson. We should listen more than we speak, especially when it comes to those who have more experience or a different perspective. Think about your own life. How many times have you tuned out someone because you were so sure you knew best? It could have been a mentor, a friend, or even a colleague offering a suggestion. In the moment, it might have felt easier to dismiss them. You might have thought, "I've got this." But what happens when we don't listen? What happens when we believe we're the only ones who have the right answer? We miss out. We close ourselves off to better solutions, smarter decisions, and, ultimately, growth. The truth is, we all have blind spots. No matter how smart or experienced we are, we can't see everything. There's always something we miss, and that's where the value of advice comes in. Listening to others doesn't make us weak, it makes us stronger. It broadens our perspective and opens us up to new possibilities. It helps us stay grounded, especially when our own ego tries to take over. But the hardest part is letting go of our certainty. When we're too sure of ourselves, we ignore what others have to offer, even when their advice could be the key to our success. The danger of ignoring advice is that it can lead to decisions based on limited information. We only see the world from our perspective, and when we reject the advice of others, we essentially say, "I know better." But no one has all the answers. No one is immune to mistakes. If we look back at history, we can see countless examples of people who made critical errors by refusing to listen. Nero is just one of the many who let their arrogance dictate their downfall. And it wasn't just Nero. Look at some of the world's most successful people who have crashed and burned because they stopped listening. It's a pattern, and it's one that we should all learn to avoid. In our daily lives, it's easy to fall into this trap. We get caught up in our own success or our own way of doing things, thinking that it's the only right way. We may have good reasons for ignoring advice. Maybe we don't trust the person giving it, or maybe we just don't like hearing it. But if we really want to grow, if we want to avoid the mistakes of those who came before us, we need to recognize the value of listening. We need to be open to learning from everyone, not just those we agree with or those who share our views. Wisdom comes from humility, the understanding that we don't have all the answers. Here's a thought. Intelligence doesn't always mean wisdom. It's a simple distinction, but one that can change the way we view ourselves and others. Intelligence is the ability to know a lot: facts, figures, theories. Wisdom, on the other hand, is knowing how to apply what we know in meaningful, thoughtful ways. It's the difference between memorizing the rules and understanding how to use them. But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes the smarter we get, the more arrogant we become. It's like a powerful engine that lacks control. It has the potential to go far, but without the proper guidance, it can easily crash. The danger of intelligence is thinking it's enough. When we believe we know it all, we stop questioning, we stop growing, and that's when we start to make foolish decisions. Consider John Stuart Mill. This man had an extraordinary intellect, a deep understanding of philosophy and economics, but even he wasn't immune to the pitfalls of intelligence. Despite his vast knowledge, Mill experienced a devastating breakdown, a crisis of the mind so profound that it left him questioning the very meaning of his work. He had reached a point where his intellect, instead of providing clarity, became a burden. His thoughts, which once guided him, now overwhelmed him. This is a common fate for those who rely too heavily on their own minds. The smarter we get, the more we start to believe that we've figured it out. But intelligence without wisdom can become a prison. It's a paradox. Our greatest asset can also become our biggest limitation. Seneca warned against this. He once said, "No man was ever wise by chance." Wisdom requires active effort, reflection, and the humility to admit that we don't know everything. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of achieving, to climb higher and higher without stopping to check if we've lost sight of what truly matters. In the pursuit of success, intelligence often becomes the fuel that drives us forward. But without balance, it can turn into overdrive, pushing us to a point of exhaustion and burnout. This is the danger of intelligence. It can make us think we have all the answers when, in reality, we're missing the bigger picture. We often forget that intelligence isn't just about accumulation. It's about how we use what we know. The more we learn, the more we're faced with the reality that we don't have all the answers. The true test of intelligence is the ability to pause, reflect, and recognize when we don't have the answers. Yet so many of us continue on the path of unchecked growth, gathering more knowledge, more facts, more data, without taking the time to process and apply it. The more we know, the more we realize how little we actually understand. And it's in this realization that true wisdom begins to emerge. Intelligence can become a tool for arrogance. We start to believe that the more we know, the more we should be in control. But wisdom teaches us humility. It teaches us to listen, to be open to new ideas, and to recognize that our own understanding is limited. When we reach a point where we believe we've figured it all out, we fail to see our own limitations. This arrogance isn't just harmful to our personal growth, it's harmful to our relationships, our decisions, and our ability to adapt. It's easy to dismiss others when we think we know better. But when we close ourselves off to new perspectives, we stop evolving. Think about it. When's the last time you truly paused to reflect on where you are in life? When's the last time you took a step back and thought, "Am I so caught up in achieving that I've forgotten to check in with myself?" The danger lies in pushing forward without taking the time to understand why we're moving in the first place. We can become so obsessed with the goal that we lose sight of the process, the journey, and the lessons that come along the way. The more we achieve, the more we can risk losing touch with the very thing that brought us here, our own ability to think critically and reflect. The paradox of intelligence is that, while it can propel us forward, it can also blind us to the things that truly matter. We can become so focused on acquiring knowledge, accumulating achievements, and proving ourselves that we forget to check in with our own well-being. And when we do that, we lose touch with our humanity. It's not enough to just be smart. We must be wise enough to know when to stop, when to pause, and when to reflect. True wisdom isn't just about understanding the world, it's about understanding ourselves and recognizing when we need to change direction. As we move through life, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that intelligence alone will get us where we want to go. But intelligence without wisdom is like a compass without a map. It may point us in a direction, but we have no real sense of where we're heading. We must learn to use our minds in conjunction with our hearts, our instincts, and our ability to reflect. Wisdom is about balance. It's about knowing when to push forward and when to pull back. It's about understanding that no matter how much we know, there's always more to learn. Let's talk about ego. It's a powerful force, but it's often not what we think. Ego isn't just about being arrogant or self-centered. It's much deeper than that. Ego is the part of us that insists we're always right, that we don't need anyone's help, and that our way is the only way. It's the voice inside that says, "I've got this," even when we don't. It's the force that prevents us from listening to others, from considering alternative viewpoints, and ultimately, from growing. Ego is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself in obvious ways, but it silently sabotages us, clouding our judgment, straining relationships, and leading us to make decisions that might seem right in the moment, but end up being wrong in the long run. The Stoics were deeply aware of the dangers of ego. They understood that ego is not just a flaw, it's a barrier to wisdom and self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius was particularly vocal about this. He constantly reminded himself to be humble and to avoid being ruled by pride. He knew that ego can lead us down a path of delusion where we think we have all the answers, and because of that, we stop questioning, we stop learning. When we let our ego take control, we stop seeing things clearly. We start assuming that we're always right, that we have nothing to learn from others, and that's when ego becomes dangerous. It blinds us to the reality of the situation, and it makes us deaf to the advice, perspectives, and wisdom that could actually help us. You can be incredibly intelligent, but if your ego prevents you from listening to others, it doesn't matter how smart you are. In fact, your intelligence can become a weakness. The more knowledgeable you become, the more confident you become in your own views, and that's when the ego steps in. It convinces you that your knowledge is absolute, that you don't need anyone else's input. But the truth is, no one has all the answers. We all have blind spots, and it's only by being willing to listen to others, to consider their perspectives, that we can truly grow. It's easy to get caught up in the trap of thinking you know it all, especially when you've had success in the past. But this is the dangerous game ego plays. It leads you to believe that your past successes guarantee future ones. Think about it. How many times have you refused to listen to someone because you were so sure your way was the right way? Maybe it was a friend, a colleague, or even a mentor offering a different perspective, and instead of being open, you dismissed it because it didn't align with your own beliefs. Ego makes us feel like we're in control, but it's an illusion. It prevents us from seeing that there's always more to learn, more to understand. This isn't just about being right or wrong, it's about keeping our minds open, about recognizing that our perspective isn't the only valid one. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Our actions, especially the ones driven by ego, reveal who we truly are, and they often lead us down a path of poor decisions and missed opportunities. When ego takes the wheel, it's easy to make bad decisions. Our need to prove ourselves, to show that we know best, clouds our judgment. We might make impulsive decisions without considering the consequences, simply because our ego tells us that we don't need to listen to anyone else. But those decisions often come at a cost, whether it's a missed opportunity, a strained relationship, or personal regret. Ego leads smart people to make foolish mistakes because it's rooted in pride and fear of being wrong, fear of looking weak, and ultimately, fear of growth. The moment we let ego take control, we stop evolving. One of the biggest dangers of ego is its ability to distort reality. When we think we know everything, we stop learning. We stop questioning. And when that happens, we become stagnant. The Stoics believed in the importance of constantly questioning ourselves, constantly seeking improvement. They knew that the moment we think we've figured it out is the moment we stop growing. It's easy to look at others and assume they don't have anything to teach us, especially when we've had success in our own lives. But the Stoic mindset tells us that wisdom comes from humility, not from the arrogance of thinking we know it all. This is where ego can sabotage relationships too. If we're too wrapped up in our own sense of superiority, we fail to see the value in what others have to offer. We dismiss them, belittle them, or worse, ignore them altogether. Relationships thrive on mutual respect, on the ability to listen and understand, not just on one person's ability to be right. The moment ego steps in, it puts a wall between us and others. making it harder to connect, to collaborate, and to learn from those around us. Ego also prevents us from being honest with ourselves. We start to see ourselves as infallible, and when we do that, we refuse to acknowledge our flaws or mistakes. The Stoics understood that self-awareness is key to growth, but ego makes it hard to look at ourselves honestly. It's easier to hide behind pride than to confront the uncomfortable truths about who we are and how we act, but it's through that self-reflection that true growth happens. By being willing to let go of ego, we open ourselves to the possibility of becoming better, wiser, and more compassionate individuals. So, next time you feel your ego rise up, when you feel that urge to prove yourself right, to ignore someone else's advice, or to dismiss a different perspective, remember the cost. Remember that ego, while it may feel empowering in the moment, only leads to poor decisions and missed opportunities. True wisdom comes from humility, from listening, and from recognizing that we always have something to learn. It's not about being right, it's about being open. It's not about knowing everything, it's about being willing to grow. Let go of your ego and watch how your life transforms. We often think that being rational means making logical decisions. It seems like common sense, doesn't it? The more intelligent we are, the more logical our decisions should be. But here's the catch. Intelligence and logic don't always lead to good judgment. The truth is, our emotions can cloud our reasoning in ways we don't even realize. Sometimes, it's not a lack of logic that gets us into trouble, but the fact that we let our emotions drive the decisions we make. The most rational person can still make impulsive, hasty choices, especially when feelings like fear, anger, or even excitement take over. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't advocate for suppressing emotions. They knew that emotions are a part of being human. Instead, they emphasized the importance of understanding them, of not letting them control us. Emotions, when unmanaged, lead us into rash decisions. We act based on immediate feelings, often overlooking the long-term consequences. When emotions take charge, it's easy to make snap judgments without considering all the factors at play. How many times have you made a decision in the heat of the moment, only to regret it later? I know I have. And I'm sure you can think of a few situations in your own life where emotional impulses led to decisions you now wish you could take back. Our emotions are a part of us, but they don't define us. The key is learning how to navigate them, how to not let them dictate our choices. When we do, we gain the ability to separate our immediate emotional reactions from the decisions we make. That's when true wisdom comes into play. It's not about eliminating emotions, it's about understanding them, reflecting on them, and ensuring they don't overshadow our rational thinking. Emotions often act as a double-edged sword. On one hand, they can cloud our judgment, leading us to make rash decisions. On the other hand, they can also reveal important insights about what truly matters to us. When we react emotionally to something, it's often a sign that something deep inside us has been triggered, whether it's fear, joy, pride, or sorrow. If we take the time to pause, reflect, and ask ourselves why we're feeling the way we are, we can use that insight to make more thoughtful, balanced decisions. But it takes practice. It takes the ability to step back in the moment and allow ourselves the space to breathe and think. Think about a time when you made an impulsive decision, driven by emotion. Maybe it was a heated argument that led to a hasty decision, or an opportunity you jumped on without fully considering the consequences. In the moment, it felt right. But afterward, you realized there were aspects you overlooked, things you didn't consider, because you were so wrapped up in the emotion of the moment. The Stoics warned us against this. They understood that the mind, when clouded by emotion, cannot make sound decisions. The key isn't to banish emotions, but to cultivate a sense of inner stillness, to be able to observe our feelings without being controlled by them. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. Being emotionally intelligent doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you're aware of your emotions and know how to channel them in productive ways. It's about being able to recognize when emotions are taking over and making a conscious choice to respond rather than react. It's about creating a balance between logic and emotion, where one doesn't overpower the other. It's easy to think that emotions only get in the way of clear thinking, but they don't have to. Emotions, when understood and managed properly, can help us make more informed decisions because they often reveal what we truly value. The challenge is not letting emotions lead us astray. The Stoics were all about self-control, not in the sense of suppressing emotions, but in the sense of mastering them. They believed that if we don't learn to control our emotions, they will control us. When we let our feelings dictate our actions, we make decisions based on temporary states rather than long-term wisdom. That's why the Stoics practiced reflection, self-awareness, and mindfulness in their daily lives. They took the time to pause, to reflect on their feelings, and to ensure that their emotions didn't steer them off course. It wasn't about avoiding emotions. It was about learning how to use them without letting them cloud our judgment. This approach is something we can all benefit from. When we allow ourselves the space to understand our emotions rather than react impulsively, we are much more likely to make decisions that align with our values, our long-term goals, and our true selves. So the next time you find yourself making a decision in the heat of the moment, take a deep breath, pause, reflect. Ask yourself why you're feeling the way you are and whether your emotions are leading you in the right direction. Because the truth is, emotions don't have to get in the way of making smart decisions. They can be a powerful tool if we learn how to use them wisely. In the end, the Stoics understood that the mind and emotions must work together in harmony. Intelligence, when coupled with emotional understanding, creates the foundation for wisdom. It's not enough to be smart. We must also learn to manage our emotions. By doing so, we can avoid the impulsive mistakes that so often come from being overwhelmed by feelings. It's about finding balance, being mindful of our emotions, and letting our rational minds guide us, even when the tides of emotion try to sweep us away. At the core of wisdom lies humility. It's a concept that can feel almost counterintuitive, especially in a world that rewards confidence and certainty. We're often taught that success comes from knowing the most, being the best, and showing others that we've got it all figured out. But true wisdom, the kind that stands the test of time, comes from something far more subtle. It comes from humility, the ability to step back, acknowledge that we don't know everything, and, most importantly, be open to learning. It's the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, a guiding principle that teaches us not just to seek knowledge, but to understand our limitations and embrace the humility of continuous growth. Humility isn't about diminishing ourselves or pretending we don't have strengths. It's about recognizing that no matter how much we know, there is always more to learn. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This reflects the idea that humility isn't about self-doubt. It's about acknowledging the vastness of what we don't yet understand and being comfortable with that. It's about accepting that growth doesn't come from knowing it all, but from the constant willingness to discover more. The moment we believe we have all the answers, we stop growing. It's a dangerous trap to fall into, especially for those who take pride in their intellect or experience. Socrates understood this truth better than anyone. He famously said that true wisdom lies in knowing that we know nothing. It's a paradox. Only when we admit how little we truly know can we open ourselves to the wisdom around us. In a world that often values certainty and self-assurance, This kind of humility feels almost revolutionary. But think about it. How many times have we been so convinced that we were right, only to realize later that there was much more to the story? In those moments, humility becomes the key to growth. It's the space between knowing and learning, the recognition that no matter how much we think we understand, there's always something new waiting to be discovered. What if, instead of constantly seeking more knowledge, we paused and reflected on what we have already learned? How often do we rush to accumulate new facts, new ideas, without taking the time to truly absorb and reflect on what we've already experienced? Humility allows us to slow down, to step back from the constant push for more, and to take stock of the lessons that are already in front of us. It's easy to get caught up in the noise of the world, to chase the next big idea or the next breakthrough. But what if the real breakthrough lies in looking inward, recognizing our limitations, and taking time to absorb what we've already learned? This kind of reflection doesn't just enrich our minds, it enriches our lives. It helps us stay grounded, aware of our limitations, and open to new perspectives. The Stoics, with their deep wisdom, constantly emphasized this idea of self-reflection. They understood that the most important growth happens when we pause, reflect, and question not just the world around us, but also the assumptions and beliefs within ourselves. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal writings, often reflected on the need to stay humble, to remind himself that he was just a small part of a much larger whole. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the power of humility. It allows us to maintain control over our own responses, our own thoughts, and our own growth, no matter what happens around us. Humility also keeps us open to the world around us. When we stop assuming we have all the answers, we open ourselves to a wealth of knowledge, experiences, and people that we might have otherwise overlooked. It's easy to dismiss someone else's perspective because it doesn't match our own, but humility teaches us that we can learn from anyone. Whether it's a colleague, a friend, or a stranger, there's always something to be gained by listening. Humility allows us to see others as potential teachers rather than as people to be judged or corrected. It shifts our focus from proving ourselves right to learning what others might offer. And when we approach the world with this mindset, it becomes a much richer, more fulfilling place. The beauty of humility is that it doesn't require us to be self-deprecating or to undermine our own worth. It's not about pretending we don't have knowledge or talents. It's about recognizing that those things don't make us invincible. Humility invites us to acknowledge our strengths while also accepting our weaknesses. It's the awareness that no matter how far we've come, there's always room for improvement. And this kind of mindset doesn't just help us in our personal growth, it helps us in our relationships with others too. When we approach the world with humility, we create space for real connection. We stop trying to one-up each other and instead work together to learn and grow. As we move through life, it's easy to become complacent in our knowledge and experience. We build up a storehouse of wisdom, but we forget that true wisdom isn't about accumulating facts. It's about being open to change, to new ideas, and to new ways of thinking. Humility keeps us on our toes, constantly asking us to reflect, to question, and to grow. It's a mindset that doesn't just lead to personal success. It leads to a deeper, more meaningful engagement with the world. And in that engagement, we find the true power of wisdom. Not in knowing everything, but in knowing that there's always more to learn. The more we embrace humility, the more we open ourselves to growth. It's a lifelong process, a journey that doesn't end when we think we've reached the top. The beauty of humility is that it reminds us there's always more to discover, always more to learn, and always room to grow. So, let's pause and reflect. Let's embrace the power of humility and let it guide us toward deeper wisdom, richer experiences, and a fuller, more connected life. Remember, wisdom isn't about knowing it all. It's about staying open, humble, and always willing to learn. As we embrace humility, we unlock the power to grow, connect, and experience life in its fullest form. So take a moment, reflect on your own journey, and allow yourself to be open to the lessons ahead. If this video resonated with you, dive deeper into the wisdom of Stoicism by watching one of the videos on the screen. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal, and remember, true growth comes from within. Keep reflecting, keep learning, and keep growing.